All right, before we get started with today's video, I just want to say that we are so close to 2,000 subscribers. If we're not already over 2,000 by the time this video is actually posted. But last time when I hit 1,000 subs, I gave away a collector's pack and 2 regular booster packs. But this time around for 2,000, I'd like to be doing a bigger giveaway. So I'm going to be giving away 1 collector's booster, 1 commander deck, and then a deck dwell deck box. So if you want to figure out how you can enter into that giveaway, go ahead and follow me on X, where it's the same name that you'll see here on YouTube at Azoreign. But you have to be subscribed here on YouTube. If you want extra entries, if you want to know the full details of the giveaway, go ahead and go over to X, where you'll find that out. And you can also follow me on TikTok at Azoreign_TCG. So if you want extra entries, completely free, once I hit 2,000 subscribers, I will be doing 3 free giveaways. So if you want to enter, go ahead, and I appreciate you. But we are going to get back into the video at hand, and next up with the series of why you should play. So we're going to tackle arguably the most notable and most popular creature type in all of Magic and in most fantasy games, which is dragons. I started with merfolk and goblins just because I like merfolk and I feel like goblins were around a lot more when I first started playing EDH, and I wanted to give those creature types some love before we got into the more popular type. So if you haven't watched those videos and you want to learn more about some fish and some weird little gobbo guys, go ahead and check those out. They'll be in the description, or you can just go to my channel and find those. Dragons in EDH and in all of Magic really are not held down by a certain category or color typings. Merfolk are small and rely on their lords to buff them, also with supplying them with abilities like Island Walk. Goblins are also small and rely on mass overrun creature effects to take over the battlefield while being able to be sacrificed as cannon fodder for a variety of abilities. But dragons are truly special throughout Magic. Dragons are everywhere in Magic. And in Magic the Gathering lore, dragons basically respawned into existence as time began across all the planes in the multiverse. So unless you're the dragons of Tarkir, which is a totally different story, dragons have been on all the planes in Magic, and they take on a lot of various roles and hit a lot of different colors in the color pie throughout the game. So there are dragons that do super dragon-y things like you're thinking of, like the classic Shivan dragon, but there's also dragons who don't need to be held to a specific fire-breathing flying monster style. And that is the beauty and the curse of playing dragons in EDH. So how are you going to find out which strategy of dragon to play? And you have no shortage of choices or strategy, but since this is a dragon-specific video, and a series about creature types, we're going to stick with dragons and what they want other dragons to do, and not delve so much into the other strategies that dragons can lend themselves into. Now that I've gotten all that out of the way, I'm going to go over some honorable mentions that can lead your draconic armies, but who might not be the most prime choices. So first off is Kaalia of the Vast, an oldie but a goodie, and a very scary one at that. Kaalia is known to cheat out massive angels and demons for free when she attacks, but the lesser known part of Kaalia is that she also says dragon. Now, I don't think I've seen a Kaalia deck built around dragons specifically, but I know that it's possible. Next is Ravaz of the Claw. Now, I have seen this deck in action. He's a cheap mana dork with recursion built into him as your commander, and even though he is limited on the colors, Ravaz is a very cool creature if you're trying to stick to the Rakdos Reanimator dragon list. It is different than most other dragon decks because you're so limited on your colors. Next is Magda, Brazen Outlaw. Now this one's a stretch, but Magda doesn't just have to cheat out game-breaking artifacts. She can also tutor up dragons by sacrificing treasure tokens, and again, you're even more limited than the Ravaz deck due to sticking with mono red, but there are some pretty cool mono red stuff, mono red artifacts that Magda can lend herself to. And next is Atarka World Render. Not much to talk about here. It's Gruul, Stompy Dragon, gives other dragons double strike. This deck wants to ramp, go fast, slam dragons, go to combat. Like, it's a pretty basic Gruul list, but Atarka's cool. So, and lastly, before we get to our prime picks of Commander, this one was tough for me to cut out of the prime list, but I think it's so good. It's borderline broken, but I think where it's limited is on its colors, and that is going to be Miram, the Sentinel Worm. Miram is a 6/6 for 6 with Ward 2, which is great. I just love Ward. Ward is the best ability ever. Please print Ward on more cards that are broken. So I hate Ward unless it's on my Sphinx, Rafine, best Sphinx. But Miram makes token copies of dragons that you play and can make legendary copies non-legendary just by yourself. So Miram just has to exist on the battlefield and you can get non-legendary copies of legendary dragons. It fundamentally breaks the game by getting around the legend rule, and on top of that, Miram comes in with built-in protection with the Ward 2, which just is so great. Love it. So if you've ever played this deck or played against the deck, I would go as far as to say that this commander is just hated off the table immediately, because all you need to do is get your commander down and you're just straight off to the races. It's just non-stop profit. There's no other setup to work around Miram to keeping the tokens. You just get around the legend rule, you keep the tokens. Your commander is a single dragon making factory by itself. You're in green, so you can ramp super hard and get out multiple dragons in a turn. But the only knock on Miram is that you're limited to Temur. So green, red, and blue. So it's hard to play all the cool dragons, but Miram is certainly extremely powerful. So now we're going to move on to our top spots for our dragon commander. And in last place, first up on our list is going to be Tiamat. Tiamat's pretty perfect for commander, honestly. Hefty mana cost, but it's really good for commander, especially because when you cast Tiamat, you get to tutor your deck for 5 dragon cards. It's a tutor in the command zone that's super strong. It lets you get out early dragons to ramp out Tiamat. And then you can just go get your game enders once Tiamat is cast. So it's not an enter the battlefield trigger, it's a cast trigger. Then if Tiamat dies, or you just choose to cast it late, most dragon decks are going to be pretty much the same, super similar. And Tiamat just allows you to safely get out your early game setups and then goes and tutors your late game ending dragons. So Tiamat is definitely dangerous because the strategy of tutoring is written on our commander, and our opponents can see that is our goal when we sit down at the table. And they'll probably decide to hit us early because they know that we're strongest in the late game. So there's not really any advice I can give on Tiamat because there isn't really a way to play around this ability. It's just cast Tiamat and tutor. So yeah, it's pretty much just your basic 5-color dragon things. And I'd make sure to include some sacrifice outlets, because once Tiamat is out, I kind of assume that your opponents are probably going to be hesitant to kill Tiamat. They're not really going to be trying to let your tutor go back to the command zone so then you can recast it and tutor again. Like, I would assume that they're going to leave Tiamat alone. So at least there's a little safety in having your commander messed with, but in this case, it's kind of what you want is to return Tiamat to the command zone so that way you can cast it. So I would definitely include some sort of benefit for you when you're sacrificing creatures, and then you can make sure to recast Tiamat. And in second place for our Draconic leader is going to be Scion of the Ur-Dragon. Scion is 5 mana for a 4/4, but mainly it's his pay 2 colorless ability. And again, we tutor a dragon and we put it into our graveyard. So Scion becomes a copy of the tutored dragon until the end of the turn. And this deck is a bit more complex as you get to play around an instant speed tutor ability that turns your commander into something else of your choice. So you can choose something with haste, you can choose something with an end step effect, or you can use Scion's ability at instant speed as your turn starts to get an upkeep trigger. You can do it at an opponent's turn. So Scion is a lot more fun, and I think it's got a lot more build around potential than something like Tiamat. And it's still going to tutor like Tiamat, which is super scary in the command zone, but it does go to our graveyard. So we will want to put a lot of graveyard stuff to get our dragons back. So we basically have 2 copies of every dragon in the deck, being the commander when it tutors, and then you send it to the graveyard, and then you reanimate it. Back in the day, Scion Tutor Skittles was just game over. It was a nasty combo that made everybody super salty. It was super fast, in the right decks with the right ramp. But I still think that Scion is cool. He's pretty good. And anything in the command zone that just allows you to tutor is going to be inherently strong. And then you can just put it's going to be dragons that you can tutor, and then graveyard recursion to just kind of keep rolling, keep getting back in the game. It is time for our last commander on the Dragons list, and is probably the one that you are all thinking about when you clicked on this video, a commander that you may have built yourself, and he is the Big Daddy, and you've either built him or you know someone who has. It is one of the most popular commanders ever, and he is the inescapable ultimate dragon commander. Number 1 on our list is the Ur-Dragon. Now, the Ur Dragon comes with an Eminence ability, which is ramp in our command zone to make use of all of our big dragons. He makes them one less to cast. He's a 10/10 for 9 mana with a keyword and triggers when 1 or more dragons attack. So he needs to come down, and then he just needs to see his draconic kin attack to get his trigger. You draw as many cards as you have dragons attacking, and then you get to put a permanent on the battlefield for free. He's ramp, he's card draw, he cheats mana cost. This card does literally everything that you want to do in Commander, and that's why he is the best and most popular dragon commander for a reason. He's also 5 colors, so he doesn't limit our dragon creativity when we want to play any dragon found throughout Magic the Gathering. So now that we've gone over some of the best dragon commanders, I want to take a minute to go over some of the coolest and best dragon spells in Commander. So first off, we have the Twin Flame Tyrant. We get you double all damage from sources that we control to end games faster. It's a great addition to any dragon deck. Honestly, it's a good addition to most red decks, but it's a dragon, so Wizards had to make it a dragon, of course. We have Lathless, the Dragon Queen. It is a dragon pump, and it makes dragon tokens when you cast dragons to make you more dragons to attack with dragons. So I heard you like dragons, so if you like dragons, this is going to make your dragons dragon more. Next up is the Udvara Hellkite. It's pretty much the obvious dragon card for any dragon deck. It does the same thing as Lathless, but it's on attack, and it makes 6/6s and not 5/5s. One of my favorites that is, I guess you could say, somewhat new at this point, is Old Gnawbone. So dragons are pretty expensive, and Old Gnawbone will help you because you're going to go to combat anyway, you're flying, you're swinging out, and when you deal damage, you're going to make treasures when you hit people with your flying army. So Old Gnawbone is it's big, it's 7 mana, but it's going to propel you where you hit someone and you make a ton of treasures, and it's like an extra turn spell if you can get through a ton of damage on someone. Next up is Sarkhan, Soul of Flame, a very cool card similar to the Scion of the Ur Dragon. It does something, it gets around the legend rule. It's a ramp piece because he discounts by 1 like the Ur Dragon. Sarkhan's cool, he's low mana cost, so like other dragons are usually going to be like 6+, and Sarkhan is a little bit lower than that, and he can discount your dragons further by 1 and then become copies of them. So he's kind of like a hybrid of the two. I really like Sarkhan. And next, to go with our Twin Flame Tyrant, we have Terror of the Peaks, obviously an insanely good piece in most red decks. That's a classic game ender. Dragons enter, deal damage to any target, take out problem creatures, or blast your opponents to end the game. Next up is actually going to be a combo of cards. It is Scourge of Valkist and Dragon Tempest. These cards do very similar things. The Tempest gives haste, which is lovely for 2 mana, and Scourge of Valkist really starts to add up. And so again, these effects that give you things by essentially doing absolutely nothing. You're just playing your deck and getting these things. So you keep throwing out dragons, and then they act as creature or player removal, and you did not deviate from your strategy at all. So I love these 2 cards in any dragon deck. And next up, again, one of my favorites. I'm like a big artifact guy, I like big machines, so it's going to be Ramos Dragon Engine. I really like Ramos, but he doesn't do much for dragons specifically, so Ramos kind of lends himself to just like 5-color good stuff. But Ramos is not on the list that's why I didn't put Ramos on the list for like top dragon commanders, because he just kind of makes mana and then that's pretty much it. He doesn't do dragon specific things, but he can get really big if you just want a big swing, or you can remove the counters from him and then you can ramp and get this huge ramp piece off of Ramos. So just get a massive boost of mana to cast more dragons or to cast a big spell. So Ramos is really cool. Another cycle of dragons that came with Old Gnawbone in the D&D set is going to be the Ancient Dragon cycle. So we have copper, silver, gold, brass, and bronze. I'm not really going to go through and read all of them because I think you can put these together for yourself. So like copper obviously makes treasure, silver draws you cards, and then I'm kind of not super familiar with the other 3, but I know that gold makes you creatures, brass can reanimate, you roll the dice and then you can reanimate creatures with a total mana value of whatever you roll, and then bronze, the worst of the 3, which is the green one. I'm really testing my magic knowledge here. I don't think I've ever seen the green one played, so there's also a green one. But we also, again, I'm not going to go through and like read everything because there's so many dragons to read here. There's the classic 3-color OG dragons from Dominaria that you can choose to run. There's their classic cards where you have to pay like their upkeep costs, like Nicol Bolas or Arcades Sabuth. But there's also their newer cards that were printed in Magic 19, I believe. So, Nicol Bolas, Arcades the Strategist, Palladium Moors, Victus Asmati. Then we also have the Tarkir dragons that you can run, which are certainly great. There's Slumgar if you want to take control of things, Dramoka, which gets rid of those pesky blue mages. You can't cast spells during their turns. Each dragon will have 2 versions from Tarkir, but a lot of the times the bigger, more expensive ones are a little bit better. Let's see if I can remember. Kolagon gives haste, which is nice, but then he punishes like when you play the same card. So Kolagon's not really great for EDH, but he gives haste as a dragon, which is cool. Then there's Ojutai, who can act as card draw, or he taps things down when dragons attack. So both of his are pretty good, obviously. And then there's Atarka. So I don't remember what the second Atarka does, but the one gives dragons double strike or like doubles their power. Like Atarka's cool. You can certainly run them if you want. But a few more specific dragons to round this out is Scale Lord Reckoner. So whenever a dragon becomes the target of a spell or ability, you get to destroy a permanent, which is really nice. Wrathful Red Dragon I've seen used a lot to end game. So similarly to the Twin Flame Tyrant in the Terror of the Peaks, Wrathful Red Dragon says whenever a dragon is dealt damage, you can deal that much damage back to something else. Klauth Unrivaled Ancient. So when he's 7 mana, but when he enters and attacks, you get to add mana for the attacking, the power of attacking creatures. So Klauth is just kind of like Ramos, big boost. Newer dragon is Zergo and Ojutai. They get to dig in your deck a little bit and reveal more dragons. One of my absolute favorite dragons ever is Cavern Horde Dragon. So he's expensive, but he gets discounted by the number of artifacts that one player controls. And then he's got haste, flying, and trample. So he's got some amazing keywords. So then when he deals damage, he's going to make you treasures equal to the number of artifacts that the player that he hit has. He's got haste and trample, so he's very good. He can reduce his own mana cost, he's got a haste, and then he can trample over flying blockers. We also have Karthus, Tyrant of Jund, if you want to be the only person playing dragons. There's what the fuck does Earthquake Dragon do? There's also Earthquake Dragon. It's a big 10/10 with flying and trample, and it costs X less to cast, for X is the total mana value of dragons. You can pay 3, sacrifice a land, and return it from your graveyard to your hand. It's not great, but it's dragony in green. There's Sunscorch Regent, again, super great dragon that I've seen played in decks. Whenever a player plays a spell, you get to put a 1/1 counter on it and gain 1 life. So it's life gain, and it starts to get huge really quick. There's Ganax, the Astral Hunger. This is going to make you treasures. So Ganax, whenever Ganax or another dragon enters, you make a treasure token, and not like amazing, but like play dragon, get treasure, more ramp, more dragons. And then lastly, for our dragon cards is going to be Bladewing the Risen. So Bladewing is 7 mana, 3 black, red for a 4/4. Whenever he enters, you can return a dragon from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then he's also a fire-breathing pump. So you pay Rakdos, dragons get 1/1 till end of turn. Again, not great on the mana cost, but he's dragon recursion as a dragon. And now time for some non-dragon stuff. So we have Sarkhan's Triumph, which I really love. It's just a specific dragon tutor. It's basically Fabricate, but for dragons. It's 3 mana, and then you just go and tutor up a dragon throughout your deck. Then we have Dragon's Horde, which is 3 mana. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield, you put a gold counter on Dragon's Horde. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, or tap, remove a gold counter, and draw a card. So it's like a better commander sphere for your dragons. The Roaming Throne is absolutely broken in any typal deck. So it's 4 mana for a 4/4 with Ward 2. I love broken cards getting Ward. It's just so great. As Roaming Throne enters, choose creature type. Roaming Throne is a creature type in addition to its other types, and if a triggered ability of another creature of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time, so obviously that's just busted. Crux of Fate is a great board wipe for dragons. You either wipe all dragons or all non-dragons, so you can save your entire board and destroy everyone else's. There is Invasion of Tarkir, one of those battles from March of the Machines. 2 mana for a 5 health siege. So Invasion of Tarkir enters, you can reveal any number of dragons from your hand. When you do, it deals X plus 2 damage to any other target, where X is the number of cards revealed this way, and then it turns into the Defiant Thundermaw, Flying Trample. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, 2 damage to any target. So just going on that fire-breathing aspect. And the last card that we are going to talk about is going to be let me see if I can pronounce this right. Savitri, Dragon Master. So it's a planeswalker. It can be your commander, but it is only blue and black. +1 until your next turn. Creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 2 life. So it's like Propaganda, Ghostly Prison for 2 life. -3, search your library for a dragon, reveal it, put it in your hand. So tutor. And then -7, destroy all non-dragon creatures. I just thought it was cool to put in another planeswalker besides like every Sarkhan ever. So Savitri is actually like pretty cool. I feel like there's so much more that I could have said and so much that I didn't say. And I just had to find a place to really cut this video off. And I know I just went over some really strong dragon-centric cards that I thought you should be aware of when building a dragon deck. And I didn't really go over a full dragon deck list because that would just take me forever. And I don't really have a dragon deck, but I'm sure a lot of you do. So in the wild, on my streams at my local game store, I see a lot of dragon decks as they're one of Magic's most powerful and popular creature types. So to all my dragon players, I hope I was able to stroke your ego a little bit. And to all my non-dragon players, maybe I convinced you on why you should play dragons in Magic the Gathering. But as always, I am your friendly blue mage, Azoreign. You may call me Azo. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you, and please remember to hit the subscribe button. Go find me on X and TikTok. I stream here on YouTube. I'm trying to get my TikTok live permissions so I can multi-stream over there as well. I stream at least once a week, and if that's something that interests you and you want to be a part of my streams, you can go ahead and join my Discord where you can find out how you can get on stream and play a game with me. Link should be in the bio of my YouTube channel and the description of this video. But as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.